Welcome to the Unnecessary Statness podcast, brought to you by the team from Useless AFL Stats Facebook page, bringing you the AFL's weird, bizarre, and totally irrelevant stats you never asked for and never knew you needed, with Liam Crowy Crowhurst, Bill the Bulldog Skelton, and Aaron Della Delaporte.
Let's get straight into it. Another edition of the Unnecessary Statness podcast. I'm Della, and I'm joined by Bill and Liam. G'day, guys.
Hey, mate. How you doing?
G'day, Aaron. Good to be here.
G'day, Liam. Another big week of footy. We're still getting through it, even though we've got COVID across most of the eastern seaboard. The AFL are finding ways to get us through. So let's jump into some of round 17, and we might start with you, Liam. What caught your eye across the weekend?
A big turning point that I found in the Port Adelaide versus Collingwood match is when Pendlebury got subbed off for Mason Cox. And I went through the record books to find out when the last time Pendlebury got subbed. And this is the first time he's actually ever been subbed. There was a game back in 2009, round 12, where he only played 2% of the game time. He went out early with an injury, only played 2%. And this round, he only played 10% of the game time before exiting.
I got a few mates who had him in fantasy. Lucky for me, I don't. But he was playing quite well until then. He was on 23 fantasy points, which is good going.
Yeah, which is pretty good. So it's an absolute shame to see him out. But it also got me thinking, Pendlebury subbing in for Mason Cox, that has to be one of the biggest height differences. I'm sure you can imagine, from being subbed off to subbed on. And I did have a look. So Mason Cox, 211 to Pendlebury's 191. So that's a difference of 20 centimetres. And this only comes in at equal 10th for height difference.
Pendlebury's a bit tall to break this record, is he?
Yes, indeed. So
Sandilands subbed out for someone like Hayden Ballantyne or something.
Oh, you're on the right track here. But we're thinking Western Bulldogs, 2015, round 14. We have
Will Minson?
No, Jordan Ruffhead subbed
nice.
out and subbed in Caleb Daniel.
Yes, Caleb.
For a difference of 30 centimetres.
I saw Caleb Daniel at a pub once without the helmet on. It was
Did you
very
recognise him?
peculiar. Well, I didn't recognise him, but he was standing next to, I think, Bontempelli and a couple of other boys I did recognise. And I deduced, who's this short man hanging out with all these famous Western Bulldogs footballers?
You put two and two together.
Yeah, figured it out.
Yeah. So that's the height difference. So the biggest being 30 centimetres. In second place, 2011 Gold Coast, Brodie Grundy subbed out for 25 centimetre height difference. So they're your top three. So I also have the weight differences between the subbed on and the subbed out player. And those go to the two I've just mentioned. Josh Thomas subbed in for Brodie Grundy and Jordan Ruffhead subbed out for Caleb Daniel, a difference of 31 kilograms. And in third place, Cale Hooker subbed out for Razio Fantasia back in 2014, round 22 for Essendon. And just to tie this back to Pendlebury and Mason Cox, so Mason Cox weighs 105 kilos to Pendlebury's 90 kilos. So a difference of 15, that puts them roughly equal 50th for the biggest difference. And of course, we can always have a look at the inverse. So what is the most similar sub-on, sub-off combination?
The like-for-like sub.
The like-for-like sub, exactly. And I reckon you're going to like this one. 2013, round 19, GWS. Stephen Cornelio subbed in, Toby Green out for a difference of 2 kilos and no difference in height.
I like it.
With the concussion rule in cricket, you have to do like-for-like. You have to bring in a batsman for a batsman, a bowler for a bowler. And I think Marnus Labuschagne replaced Steve Smith as a concussion sub. And I do feel like that's possibly the most like-for-like substitution in the history of sports, not to bring up useless cricket stats in this podcast.
We're diverting. What caught your eye, Bill, across the weekend?
Carlton, Collingwood, Essendon, Richmond and Hawthorn all lost, which was very enjoyable, I think, for just about every fan of teams that aren't those teams. They're probably a fair list of the most hated teams in the league. Carlton's done a fair bit of losing recently, but obviously Hawthorn and Richmond over the past 10 or 15 years. Collingwood as well has been good. Essendon was good in the early 2000s. Carlton won a flag in the mid-90s. So we were curious as to if this had happened before and how often. They've all played in the same round nearly 2,000 times, and all 5 have lost on just 9 occasions. This was the first one since 2015, and it did happen a bunch of times in 2005 I got curious
Oh, yes.
and I looked at the 2005 ladder.
They were all at the bottom.
Essendon, Richmond, Hawthorn, Collingwood, Carlton are bottom 5 teams. So they did a fair bit of losing altogether in that year. That's quite the season. Adelaide, West Coast, Sydney, top 3. I'll call it interstate ladder. I'm saying that from Melbourne. Obviously, you boys might not think that that's an interstate ladder, but it is for me. Yes, this is just about the opposite of what you want the league to look like. You really want the top 8 to be all Victorian sides.
Yes.
And the other thing that caught my eye, this is very niche, but Geelong beat Richmond. So the grand final loser beat the grand final winner for the second time this year. We did get asked whether or not that's happened before. It's happened a bunch of times, but the point differential of 101 points that Geelong's beaten Richmond by this year ranks 3rd. It's behind Sydney and Hawthorn in 2013 and Adelaide and North Melbourne in 99. And perhaps strangely, this didn't really catch my eye about this weekend because it happened in 1976, but in the 75 grand final, Hawthorn lost to North Melbourne, and then in 76, Hawthorn got revenge 4 times. So they beat North Melbourne 4 times the following season after losing the grand final to them. So fair to say they took it personal.
Well, just back on that stat about those 5 traditional Victorian teams, it led me to find another stat which will go up on the Facebook page tomorrow. It's not there yet. This round... So round 19, 2021, has actually got the most premierships won by losing teams in a round. It broke a previous record, which stood on that round 6, 2015 that you mentioned. So there was 84 premierships amongst the losing teams in that round. This round, there is 86 premierships amongst Carlton, Essendon, who have both got 16 flags. Collingwood have got 15 flags. Hawthorn and Richmond with 13. Melbourne with 12, and we better not leave out St Kilda's 1 flag. So a total of 86 there. And, of course, this stat will only get bigger because, obviously, as time passes, more flags are won. So there was only 30 flags amongst the winning teams. Of course, Geelong with 9 has easily the most of them, ahead of Sydney and then West Coast with 5 and 4. Something else which caught my eye on the round was Liam Stocker's Bubblegum Rainbow Jocks, or Speedos, I believe they are. I've never seen that on an AFL field. I thought there was a flash of light on the screen or something, and it was something had gone wrong with my TV.
Your eyes had deceived you.
Yeah, but it was right on his ass. So luckily I was on my KO, so I could have a rewind, and sure enough, no, it was.
Zoom in and enhance and really get a good look.
I don't have that function, thankfully. That's got to be some of the weirdest jocks we've seen. But then we put it up on Facebook, and seems like rainbow jocks are quite popular amongst the general public and some footy players. We have even had a bunch of seemingly AFLW players that must have had their underwear exposed during games, because there was a few females tagging each other in with incidents from the past, no doubt. But very interesting and strange one that. Maybe it sort of sums up Carlton's season a bit. They get caught with their pants down a lot this year.
I think he got caught with his pants up, frankly. They were sort of more of a wedgie type exposure than a dacking traditional underwear exposure.
And it was Ben Cunnington that gave it to him. You're not going to argue back with Ben Cunnington. I don't know what you could do to Ben Cunnington.
Did we picture Ben Cunnington as that traditional high school bully type person, just giving wedgies to, anyone that comes across his path?
I think that he'd be the sort of person that would exact revenge on the bullies. He'd be like the Punisher. He sort of seems like the sort of guy that would be sort of anti-bully bully.
He wouldn't give it out willy-nilly.
Nah.
But if you deserved it, you'd cop it.
Yeah, you wouldn't want to get on the wrong side of him. Sort of a Batman type figure, I think.
Max Gawn, I want to have a chat about him as well. He's making a platform for his own back by helping people win Mark of the Year.
Loves to help people out.
Yeah, he did it with Liam Ryan in 2019, and I'll be surprised if he doesn't go close this year as well, given he'd already provided the platform for Mitch Georgiades, and now he's done it again with Cody Waitman. Isaac Heaney on the top of Luke Ryan was pretty impressive as well.
I think Mark Blissabs has sat underneath a couple of Marks of the Year as well.
He has. It's the big guys.
Fairly useless Mark Blissabs stat. Or not stat, more fact. Liz Cambridge has pulled out of the Olympics, as you may be across, and she was replaced by Mark Blissav's sister.
Oh, wow.
So quite the family.
They were the steeplechasers, weren't they?
The parents are basketballers, and the sister's obviously a basketballer, but
We love a basketball
We do
background.
love
don't we?
a basketball ancestry. Yeah, but
He was the steeplechaser.
he was a steeplechaser. So he was a bit of a black sheep of the family. They're all basketballers, but him.
Yeah, and a big disappointment this round, I have to say. We nearly set a new record for the most distinct games records in a round.
Oh, yeah, the milestones.
So we nearly had a 50th, 100th, 150th, 200th, 250th, 300, and 350th in the same round, which has never been done before. But unfortunately, I think it was Sean Higgins.
Yeah, Geelong let us down.
Yeah, he really let us down here.
Unusual for Geelong to make a late change.
Yeah.
It's not like they don't have track history with that.
Yeah. So unfortunately, this just becomes another round. This is the third round with 6 distinct milestone games, previous of which had happened in 2003 round 7 and 2021 round 6.
We've got another 300th game coming this week with Shannon Hearn. So we could have another 300, 250, assuming Higgins is good to go. But I don't think we've got a 200 coming this week. So there's been quite a few 300 games recently. I think Mark Murphy's sneaking up on it as well.
Cam Guthrie's at 198, so he's just let us down there.
Yeah, very disappointing. So we've got Mark Murphy coming up, and we've got Tom Hawkins coming up, assuming Geelong play finals, which I had to see them not.
It's more about whether or not he gets rubbed out for a accidental jumper punch or not. I think the Cats are playing finals, but whether or not Hawkins is going to be there, sort of got to hold your breath.
Who have we had? We've had Nathan Jones, Jack Rewalt, Travis Boak, soon to have Shannon Hearn, possibly Mark Murphy and Tom Hawkins. That's quite a few 300s this year. Good year for the 300s. And, of course, David Mundy with his 350th. Another good round for the Mo votes. Quite a few players caught my eye.
Who scored votes this week in the Brown Mo medal?
I'm going to give the 5 to Tom Stewart. I was listening to Gary and Tim. I don't mind a bit of Gary and Tim on SEN Breakfast. And they were coming up with nicknames for players, and they ended up on Stinky for Tom Stewart. So apparently it's because no one wants to go near him in the back line. He's always free. So I'm happy to go with that. So well done to Stinky on another top game. He had 25 disposals at 92% efficiency, 9 marks, 10 intercepts, 7 score involvements. So with 4 games to go, it's Stinky is looking good for the win. I think he'll be a fitting winner, but he's not over the line just yet. 4 votes to Bailey Smith. That was a great game, actually. A lot of standout performers in that game. We had the Bond, McRae, the little Oz kicker Caleb Daniel we talked about earlier, and Clayton Oliver. Actually, Caleb Daniel looked even smaller with that the long sleeves and the helmet combo. But Smith, back to him. He had 9 tackles with 26 disposals, a goal, 592 metres gain. It was a good game, even though those other players probably got maybe the Brownlow votes and the coaches' votes, but and a good win by the Dogs. They turned around that earlier loss to Melbourne. They're looking like the premiership favourites now if they can stay on top. 3 votes. This is a first-time Mo vote getter for this year. Shane Mumford, the Sausage King, had a good game in the ruck. I think he definitely had the better of young Draper. He kicked a really good goal in the second half. He doesn't kick many snags, old mummy, but he still gave away 5 free kicks, which is about his average for free kicks. But he had 6 clearances and 2 of his trademark bone-crushing tackles. So I got him in the votes. Probably could have got him in earlier, but glad I got him in by the end of the year. 2 votes for Jakey Lever. Good game by him. He was up against it in the back line for Melbourne. He had 15 intercept possessions against the Dogs, but he didn't have enough support, sadly. He had 20 disposals and 5 marks, which on a wet night's pretty good going for a key defensive player. And 1 vote for Tom Liberatore. Not his absolute best game, but then again, he wasn't far off it. He had 27 disposals, 19 contested, which is, he normally gets about 2/3 of them contested at least. 7 clearances, 2 goal assists. For any other player to be an awesome effort, but for Libra, it's pretty much standard. Honourable mentions to young Jeremy Sharp, Jake Lloyd, Joe Danaher, and James Warple. So the leaderboard is 31 to Tom Stewart. He's got a 3-point break on Tom Liberatore on 28. 23 back to Taylor Walker and Jake Lever, who need to wriggle on, and 21 to Bailey Dale, who's probably out of it by now. There we go. Those will be up on our Facebook page tomorrow.
And the retro round is coming up this weekend. I think a lot of players do grow a mustache for retro round, so there could be a lot of first-time and one-time vote getters as they come in and out. You might see a Dangerfield bob up for 1 week here, so we'll have to keep track of that pretty closely.
I do love the promos with Tom Hawkins because he's got a mustache on every one of them. When they do all the promo stuff, it was obviously at the start of the year when they all grew those mustaches.
Yeah, the pre-season mustache.
Good to see him bring one back. I saw a picture of Alex Pearce for Freo in the old green Dockers jumpers. Personally, I think they look shocking, but it's interesting. They're up against Richmond on Sunday Arvo this week, so it'll be the green and the gold of Australia clashing on Sunday afternoon. All right, we might go into your deep dive, Bill. You've got a beauty this week, I believe.
This week's deep dive was into the sort of great names throughout the 120-year history of the sport, and specifically looking at the vowels in those names. Bit of housekeeping. I've had a disagreement with my wife today about this. I'm not convinced that Y is a vowel.
Oh, yeah, the old Y, the vowel.
There's sometimes 50-50, depends on context vowel. I've dropped it. Semi-hate mail if you need to. Bozanavalagi?
Yes.
Yes. He's played nearly 10 games now. He's the first player in history to have an A, an E, an I, an O, and a U in their last name. No one has ever done that before.
This was brought to our attention by Maddie Ogilvie, who sent us a message asking if he was, in fact, the only person.
Yeah, there was over 100 people that had done it across both their first names and their last names. But yes, he's the first person to do it in just their last name. No one's ever done it in just their first name. Many people have got 4 out of 5 vowels in their first name. It's hard to sort of know which ones to highlight, but
Who was the most recent?
The most recent player to debut whom has 4 unique vowels in their first name is Courtney Dempsey.
Oh, yes.
Courtenay Dempsey, sorry. Yep, that's actually very important that you pronounce that A for the purpose of this conversation. Courtenay Dempsey played 133 games. So, yeah, it has been a while.
He did one of the best running bounces I've ever seen. He bounced it went behind him, and he, I think, accidentally backheeled it back over his head and landed back into his arms and continued running all in the one motion.
Does he get the bounce stat and the kick stat in that one action, do we reckon? Or
he should, because it was amazing.
Amazing.
Anyway, that was a bit of sidebar. Back to the stat, Bill.
Yeah, the player with the shortest name who picks up every vowel is Luke Toya. Very efficient. Lukeetoia. Very little fat on that name. It's almost entirely vowels.
Actually, he played like his name. He was a 175 centimetre, 80 kilo, nuggety little rover.
Interested, obviously, Anthony McDonald-Tippenwoody comes up a lot in these sorts of conversations. He has the longest name with 27 characters, 26 if you want to exclude the hyphen, I believe. But he does not have an E in his name anywhere.
That's sort of like Robert Medico doesn't have the A.
Yeah, he comes up fairly regularly when I'm looking at this list, along with Anthony Koutafidis, for example, is up there as well, except Anthony Koutafidis is missing the A in his last name. If we look at the players who have played the most games, who have all 5 vowels across their names, there's a few sort of 300 gamers with Michael O'Loughlin and Francis Burke, and then some superstars underneath them as well. Anthony Koutafidis, as we mentioned, with 278 games. Cameron Guthrie on 198 games has come up twice now in this podcast. I've managed to bring him up pretty regularly. So all 5 vowels across the whole name, it's not that interesting. But yeah, now that we have a player with all 5 vowels in just his last name, it prompted a dive. Some interesting players have come up through history for sure. There's there's lots of names like that don't have a vowel. The first names, you've got Reese, Sid, Kim, Win. There's a Glyn. Lots of names like that. Jai spelt with just the JY. There was another record, that the most vowels in one name. So there is a player who has had 6.
Mine Spanderman?
No, it's Adam Ramananax. I can't pronounce it.
Ramanascus.
Adam Ramanascus has 6 A's. No other player
Wow.
has 6 or more of a specific vowel. And then if you just only care about the last names, which I know some of our audience does, it's 5 with the letter E, and that's Cyril Sellenmeyer with 5 E's in just the last name.
Who do you play for?
I have no idea. I don't think anyone does. There's a bit of more of a medium length dive than a deep dive this week.
I've got some follow-up questions.
I'm ready to answer them. I've developed a little bit of a tool for me to answer questions quickly. So fire.
So any vowel across the full name, who has the most vowels? So any combination of A, E, I, O, U?
So if an A occurs 3 times and an I occurs once, that would be 4.
Yep.
Okay, so total vowels.
Yep.
Okay, so it's a 7-way tie between dippers in this tie. So we've got Maury Diagaru, Paul Kulaloteritis, Austin Wanairia Mira. I feel like I'm going to get in.
Austin
Wanairia in trouble for this this podcast. Daniel G and Sarah Kusa. I've mispronounced this person's name in a previous podcast. Luke Davies Uniaki. We've got Dipper,
yes.
Robert Dipper-Namenko. I feel like I've forgotten how to speak English. Audley Gillespie Jones is the other player.
Oh, wow.
Of those players, GN Syracuse with 265 games is the most capped.
You've done well.
Oh, I can't believe I was prepared for that answer, but forgot to actually practice pronouncing their names.
It sounds like you've been on SBS. Has anyone got more than a couple of U's?
Multiple U's. Okay, 4-way tie with 3 U's.
3?
Yep, one player that we just mentioned, Paul. Yep. You have to pronounce it for me again. A great name, Paul Bulus, as well, is in here.
Oh, yes.
And then Hugh, geez, I've got no chance here. Colquhoun. That's got to be wrong. Colquh. That sounds Irish. I'm not sure if it is. Hugh Colquhoun. I'm not sure I've ever heard of that player before. He played 2 games.
I've never heard of it.
And he's got a Q where a Q doesn't belong in his name. I'm sure of it.
Colquhoun.
Yep. He died 70 years ago. He played 2 games for St Kilda in 1912. And he was born in Paran, which is where I currently am. So there you go.
One more thing, while we're on the topic of U's, a double U, as in not the letter W, but literally a double U, double letter U, has only appeared twice, Jamie Dersmer and Xavier Dersmer, of course, being a very rare occurrence.
Oh, yes. We've got 2 players playing at the moment with double A. We've got Jake Arts and Cameron Zerha.
Mm-hmm. And anyone named Isaac.
Yeah, and Aarons as well. There's a few ways to... Lots of Aarons have played throughout history with the double A's.
Spanderman, Spaander.
There's Zerha has a double A. Saad.
Oh, yes. What about the most O's?
Most O's, 3-way tie.
It's got to be at least 6.
Gordon Proudfoot has 5 O's. Mario
5.
Bortolotto has 5 O's. And Don Cockatoo Collins with 5 as well. I think you asked me about, we may as well go through them all. So most I's, 4 is the record, and it's been held by 8 people. Looks like the Italian team of the century, if I can be honest. Silvio Forcini, Philip Porasandis, Willie Rioli, Alir Elias, modern players as well. Michael Riscatelli.
The double I.
Alir Elias got one of the greatest names. It's a top 5 name.
The only player with a double I.
And he got it twice.
And he does it so good, he does it twice.
I would say that's a top 5 name ever. Except I've just looked down. One position beneath him on this list is William Williams. So he's obviously got 4 I's.
Lenny Leonardson and Carl Carson.
I can't believe there's a William Williams.
There was a Donald McDonald. He was a gun.
Oh, this
Parents with a sense of humour. Oh, you love it.
This almost inspires a secondary deep dive. William Williams played just after World War II for Sydney. 124 games, kicked 180 goals. So he's overcome great sort of shortcomings with his way his parents named him to be successful there. E's we covered. The record was 6. Oh, sorry. No, that was just for the last name. So the most E's in the whole name, there's 17 people here. Derek Egg Molessi Smith jumps out at me is one of the great names there. There's a few O'Keefes in this list as well. Most A's is Adam Ramanang. I can't do it. I just can't do it. I've got to throw to you, mate. Savaradagalia sits here with 4 A's. So hopefully, I was about to say hopefully he can get a few more. I don't think that's really how it works. But though players have changed their names throughout history. Jared Rook became Max Rook and sacrificed the double R. So maybe someone can just bob up and take this record if they just feel like it.
The way the AFL clubs are going, they're recruiting Sudanese players and South African and those sort of players. We'll look at CJ for Hawthorn and them.
Yeah.
Martin Frederick.
I reckon the record for the most A's in a name really should go to Orazio Fantasia when you think
as
about
it's pronounced.
As it's pronounced, yeah.
Very good. I'll let you in on a pre-useless stat. I'm always keeping my eye on ones that are coming up, including any player with a double L. There's been 2,221 double L's featuring AFL players' names. That's including them twice if it's someone like Will Phillips, who's got it in their first and their last. That counts as 2. So and we had Anton Toohill. He was the 2,221st. So the next player to debut with a double L will become the 2,222nd double L to play. So we're waiting on that to happen. But we could be here all night if we were going on the consonant doubles.
I'll just quickly go through 6 players. We've got Aliir, William Williams, Harry Harrison, Murray Murrell, Steve Stevens, and Billy Billett.
And Donald McDonald.
Don McDonald didn't come up in this search. I was just looking for players whose first 4 characters match to the first 4 characters first to second. Yes, he snuck out of that list, but there's some great names there. Billy Billett is pretty good.
My favourite player ever is Harry Horsnail.
We found Herb Fry the other day with someone.
Yeah, there's plenty of good ones in
sort
there.
of like a recipe type instructional player. There's been more Herbs than you'd expect, actually.
There's been a Gordon Ramsay too,
Yeah,
which is a popular one when it found its way into a stat the other day, or more than a few weeks ago now. But
No Jamie Olivers in the database.
no, there's a Clayton, but I don't think there's a Jamie. Jamie's not a popular name anymore. We'll have to bring that back.
there's a Jamie Bond. That's close to something cool, but also not quite.
All right, that was a good one, Bill. Cheers for that. Yeah, we put up that post about R2. Much easier to say than his surname. So hopefully he keeps going because, and maybe one day someone will join him with that unique 5-vowel surname. But good stuff.
Now it's time for Liam's mailbag.
Mailbag. And this first one comes in from Steve Fry. Hi, team. Just noticed that the Bulldogs have not had an even number total kicked against them since round 5. And 16 of the last 18 scores against them this year are odd. So essentially the Western Bulldogs this year have had 16 out of their 18 games. The opposition has scored an odd number as their total. And so we're just looking for a useless AFL stat here.
I wonder if that's got anything to do with them being on top of the ladder. It could be a one of those strategies like that that one we had with the kicks.
Oh, yeah. Every team that has ever kicked precisely 262 kicks has won. 24 wins, 0 losses.
This question comes in from Steve Fry. Hi, team. Just noticed that the Bulldogs have not had an even number total kicked against them since round 5. And 16 out of their 18 scores against them this year are odd. Can you get some sort of useless stat out of that?
So what we're being asked to do here is find whether a team has had the opposition score an odd number
total against them. So just having a look at the season level stats, we can see that the Bulldogs are currently in top spot with a massive 88% of their games against odd numbers. So if they can keep that up towards the end of the season, I think they might be on track for at least 5 to more games. So if they can keep it above 80%, then they'll take the record. The next highest being Essendon in 1962 at 80%. 16 out of their 18 games were against an odd score.
Oh, wow. Good work by the Dogs.
And Bill, I believe you have some extra stats for us here.
Yes, so looking at how many of these were in a row rather than just the total season. So the Bulldogs have allowed their opposition to kick an odd score many times this year, but it's also 13 games in a row. From round 6 to this round just past is 13-game streak. That is in equal second place with the Brisbane Lions, who did it across 2004 and 2005, and one behind first place. So the record streak is 14. That streak was done by Essendon in 1962. Essendon came first on the ladder in 1962 and they won the grand final. The Brisbane Lions, unfortunately, did not win the grand final when they did their streak, but the Western Bulldogs are first on the ladder here. So allowing your opposition an odd score 13, 14 times in a row appears to suggest you're a fairly good side. I'm sure you're well aware of who won the 2004 grand final, Liam.
Very well aware.
It wasn't Brisbane, but they did make it. If this week Western Bulldogs' opponent goes odd, they'll tie the record. And then if they go one more, they'll break it.
On the edge of our seats, I reckon. Who have Western Bulldogs got next week? Adelaide. So what do we think in the strat here is they get...
Let them kick a point.
Bulldogs just try to get the win, essentially. But they'll have to notice whether the opposition is on an odd or an even score. So they're going to have to either, towards the last 5 minutes of the game, if they're on an even score, they'll just have to rush it behind, to be honest. And no one's going to bat an eyelid to that. But if they're on an even score in the last 2 minutes of the game, you only want Adelaide to get goals, essentially. Or if they score a point, then in the kick out, you just walk it back over the line to bring it back to an odd score. So I reckon that's the game plan.
AFL scores odd 50.01% of the time. So they do slightly favour the Bulldogs' chances here.
I've got a similar stat, but it relates to players. This is even longer than that. So it's 17 games by a player. Darren Glass from round 20, 2001 to round 8, 2003. He missed a few games, but he played 17 games, and the Eagles scored 17 times in a row an odd numbered score, and that ranged from 33 points against Geelong all the way up to 137 points against Fremantle. Actually, no. Oh, I know that. There's one 171, but that was just outside the streak.
We can also have a look at even number games, even number total scores by an opposition. So in 1938, Hawthorn and 1950 Carlton both had 15 out of their 18 games in that season were against even numbers, brings their total to 83%. So that's technically the record for a season against the same parity of a number. So 83% is the benchmark here that we're looking for. This next question comes in from Harry Lagustes. Which AFL player has played one AFL game but for the biggest crowd in that one game?
Oh, wow.
Good question.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic question. What we'd love to see. And the winner goes to Tom Jock, 2019 round 23, Essendon v Collingwood.
Yes.
85,405 in attendance.
I wonder how many were his family and friends.
Would count for a couple. So he's only played one game so far.
Yes, he won't be playing anymore. He's delisted.
Would the most on debut be Marley and Pickett?
Yes, got to be.
Yeah, I'd say that's the case. 90.
If not, it's got to be close.
I'll check.
And in second place, 1971 round 6 Collingwood versus Melbourne, Dennis O'Brien in front of 80,231 in attendance.
I hope some of the guys that have only played one in front of nobody get another go at it, because that'd be a bit disappointing to have only one game and it's during COVID.
It's during COVID, yep. And in third place for Collingwood, Danny Roach, 2001 round 4 in front of 78,000 Collingwood versus Richmond.
It is Marley and Pickett, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Travis Pays with 95,614 is in second place, ahead of Len Thompson in third, but Marlon Pickett's the only person with 100,000 plus on debut.
Well, my first game ever at the MCG, actually, no, it was my second. was the 2013 AFL Grand Final. That was in front of 100,015 or
Are
something.
you sort of suggesting that you have this record?
Yeah, so I was 3 rows from going on the field. It wasn't far away. We probably maybe should end this podcast with a bit of Bunnings chat, because we put up a seemingly useless stat about Alex Rance returning to the VFL with Essendon as a one-off, but we posted his Bunnings plaque taken at Oakley Bunnings.
I was buying something from Oakley Bunnings and snapped it to you a while ago. I didn't realise what we would uncover.
We've dozens of the plaques have just come out of the woodwork.
Yes, he opened the Oakley Bunnings on the 27th of June 2019, and I did a bit of a Google thinking there might be a few others, and there was. So we had Drew Petrie out at Ballarat, Koutafidis doing Coburgs, Kevin Sheedy at Roos Hill, Brian Lake at Mornington, and Matt Prittis at Mandurah. So a good array of different teams there and different Bunningses. But then we got flooded in the comments with Chris Grant and a host of Adelaide players. Apparently Alistair Lynch has done one over in Tassie. Dipper and Dermot Brereton in Hawthorn. Oh, there was Andrew Mackey in Geelong. Trent Cotchin in Mernda. Sean Burgoyne in Port Lincoln. I think there was even one in Alice Springs somewhere.
I mean, we got a message 5 minutes ago. People worked on these Bunnings, and yeah, the Chris Grant and Kevin Sheedy, we got a bit of a behind-the-scenes look at those ones from Bunnings HQ. So it's going off. Who knew?
We could have done a deep dive into Bunnings as being opened by AFL players. I'm not sure if that's a Bunnings strategy or whether someone just started that. Maybe it was Drew Petrie who started it, and then all the other Bunnings want to follow suit. But I like it.
In the Philippines, there's a knockoff Bunnings chain called Builders Warehouse that's made to look exactly the same as Bunnings. The green and red logos, the works. So I wonder if they have plaques by fake AFL players when you go inside.
I remember trying to get sold a watch in Bali by James Crawford, who was about 3 foot shorter and absolutely no resemblance to the James Crawford, the basketball player. And then I later found out that all the people on the beach selling watches were all named after a famous Australian sportsman.
What purpose does that serve?
I don't know.
Trying to get you a false sense of security? Like,
yeah, there was
you're really James Crawford.
Alan Border was there selling watches. No, it was very interesting. And I wonder if those Philippines knockoff Bunnings, if they do the sausage sizzle out the front, I might would be worthwhile. Only if they have the sausage sizzle out the front, though. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't go there.
Most of these plaques come from Victoria and WA and Tasmania and the like. So I'm going to have to look around in Queensland, see if there's any up here. But I
assume it's all going to just be NRL players.
Maybe Gary Ablett did one in the Gold Coast.
Yeah, maybe, or Jonathan Brown or Simon Black maybe up here. But
get down to Surfers Paradise or Southport. I believe Nick Weriwalt played down there in his early days. Maybe he did one. Well, we might wrap it up there, boys. Cheers once again for another big episode. Good luck on all the useless stat findings throughout the week, and we'll catch everyone again next time.
Thanks, mate.
See ya.
Thanks for listening to Unnecessary Statness, the Useless AFL Stats podcast. Subscribe or follow on Facebook for more useless stat-related content.